everybody, and welcome to the 4-Star Chicago Sportscast. We are live for the first edition, and I would like to start off with our introductions today. My name is Sean Lugo, and I've been a long time Chicago Bears, Chicago Cubs fan, and I've long wanted to sit around and talk sports and enjoy it with my friends. And hopefully you guys can come along on our journey as we build our brand here, Talking Bears, bringing you guys some great content, great updates. I'd like to first off thank Brandon Trax Hyatt. This is something, like I said, I've long wanted to do. He was able to put me on, give us our start. You can still catch Kyle and I on Wednesdays at 9 o'clock on the Chicago Sports Podcast. Hopefully we see you there after you view us here. And I'm going to turn this over to my boy, DJ Crafty Dustin Jones, so he can introduce himself to y'all.
Thanks, Sean. What's up, Chicago? What's up, Dan, Bruce? Thanks for being in the chat. I'm Dustin Jones. Excited to start this journey with three friends of mine. A couple of them are longtime friends. Known Brandon and Kyle for a very long time. Me and Brandon used to talk sports while we worked in a warehouse in like 2009. So we're coming a long way here. You know, I don't know. I'm a very passionate sports fan. Been a big fan of Chicago sports and sports in general since I was a kid. When I was 4, I could name every NFL team by looking at their helmets. Talking sports is a way for me to connect with people. It's a way I was able to connect with my dad when I talk, just people in general. Like, you can always relate. So I'm excited to relate with you guys here and all the people that watch and view us. And it's going to be a fucking blast. Let's do it. Brando.
What's going on, guys? I'm Brandon. That's Chicago 4-Star Chicago Sports, guys. We're excited to kick this off. The same as Sean, guys. It's something I dreamt about doing. Me and Kyle and Dustin have kind of beat the idea up for a good 10 years. And again, I got to thank Brandon Trax with Chicago Sports Podcast as well, because he kind of got me off my couch and gave me the motivation to do this. And now we're kind of branching off and trying to bring you a kind of a different form of content, guys. But yeah, I attended bar and sports bars for about 10 years, and I've found myself watching every sport from tennis to golf to all the ones we love most. And I think I got into football around, 99 when the Rams beat the Titans in that Super Bowl. I watched, I think it was Tyson reaching for the end zone, and I thought, wow, is there a better sport? So football is my favorite sport. Still live and breathe Bulls. That's my team, guys. But yeah, I'm excited to get this started. I'm excited to work with these three gentlemen in front of you here, and hopefully we can bring the fans the product that they not only desire but deserve.
And Brandon and I are still on Mondays on CSP as well. We'll be on tonight. So
yep. Join us after this, guys, if you got the night free.
9 o'clock. Check them out.
Kyle, go ahead. Sorry.
Thanks, Brennan. Yeah, my name is Kyle DePlace here, guys. We're here with 4-Star Chicago Sports. This is the Hallis Hall Hangover Sports Podcast. We should be here every Monday after the Bears game, Sunday night or Sunday Bears games. Same here, man. Guys, I'm just a lifelong Bears fan, lifelong Cubs fan. I love the Bulls. I love the Blackhawks. I've been wanting to talk about sports with people for a long time. It's nice to get out in a public venue here and get some feedback and see what you all think about us. Just check us out. We're still part of Chicago Sports Podcast with Brandon Trax Hyatt, but we are launching our brand here, and we're happy to have you guys here with us, man.
Yeah, show us some love, guys. Like and subscribe, please, if you enjoy the content that we bring you.
Please.
Yeah, you subscribe, you get those notifications every time we're putting out any content. Be nice and easy for you, so we ain't got to hassle you about it.
So guys, you can find us on all the platforms, too. You'll start seeing a lot of content from Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We got a lot of things in the works, and an official website as well coming soon, too. So stay tuned for that, guys.
Yeah, and we'll have a big announcement coming up for December 16th, Monday Night Football game at our very first and favorite sponsor, River Street Tavern. And my boy Kyle's going to tell you all about River Street.
Yeah, guys, you can go check out River Street Tavern in East Dundee, 102 North River Street. A bunch of great food specials on Bears Sundays. They have half-price Bears bites, basically boneless wings, and they $1 off every draft. They've got great specials throughout the week, half-price tacos, $2 burgers. Go check it out if you guys get the chance, man. It's a great place. It's a sports bar, plenty of televisions. There's always got a Chicago sports team on, so go check it out.
And as we kick off this first show, I believe we wanted to take a quick trip around the NFL, catch everybody up on some headlines that happened today. Trent Williams says he's not coming to camp, boys, or he's not going to show up for week 1 without a new contract. For me, this is a humongous problem for the San Francisco 49ers, not only Brock Purdy, CMC, but that entire offense, because that guy, he's a mover. And I want to go.
He's the key to their offense. He's the key to their offense.
I want to go to Dustin because I know you love the 49ers. So
I
fill us
do.
in on what you think about this.
I don't think it's a lot to stress about as a Niners fan right now. You know, I think they're going to get the deal done. I mean, you had messaged earlier, are we choosing between Ayuk or Trent Williams? If that's a choice, I don't think it's a choice at all. Thanks, Trax. What up, Trax? How you doing?
What's going on, Trax?
I think Trent Williams is it's a done deal. It's just going to be how they work out the parameters of that contract. He's going to get paid. The Niners know how valuable he is to that offense. Kyle Shanahan knows how valuable he is to that offense. So I'm not stressing about it right now. It's going to get done. And I do think they're going to get Ayuk signed too. I really do. I think they're going to end up with both of them and run it out for a Super Bowl this year.
You know, as we hit the next major headline, this is pretty impressive for CeeDee Lamb to get that 4-year, $136 million contract. The big question I have here, and I think we're going to feel the same about this. They got 2 other major contracts coming up with Micah Parsons and Dak Prescott. Obviously, I'm going to say Micah Parsons is the guy that's most important. Brandon, what do you think in that situation right there? With between getting Dak or Parsons under this deal, because I don't think they can sign both.
Well, I would start off by saying good for Jerry Jones, and I say that I tread lightly there because it took too long, to be honest. CeeDee Lamb hard earned that contract. He should be probably the highest paid non-quarterback in the league. But yeah, if there's a choice there, man, you got to go Micah Parsons. He's probably the most important piece on the Dallas Cowboys, both sides of the football. Dak Prescott is an incredible quarterback. He gets crapped on a lot for no reason at all. I don't get it. He is a good quarterback. He gets his team to the playoffs, and I'm sure soon he'll break that playoff win boundary. But I think if Dak is the guy who some teams have relied on before, like the Tom Brady's of the league, if he's happy with being a Dallas Cowboy, he might be able to backload his contract or work something out there. But if the Cowboys had to give one or the other a deal, I would imagine, honestly, they sign Dak and try to trade Micah Parsons for something valuable because they need a quarterback, guys. That's the piece in this league you can't have without.
Well, PT57 just asked the question right there. Is it easier to find a defensive end or a quarterback? You know, because that's what you got to think about, right?
That's why I said that. I think Dallas would trade Parsons and sign Dak Prescott because you got to have a quarterback.
That's the toughest position to nail down, and it's more important to your success in the NFL, right, Kyle?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely tougher to find a quarterback, no doubt about it. Especially when you're comparing him to the defensive end position. Now, Micah Parsons might be a little bit different because he's kind of one of a kind. I consider him a top 3 pass rusher in the NFL. I believe that Micah Parsons is still on his rookie contract, so I think he can be franchised.
He is. He is 2025.
I just don't know if the Cowboys. I don't know if the Cowboys have enough money to sign Dak and franchise tag Parsons. I mean, I will say this: the Cowboys got Dak Prescott in the 4th round. I don't remember what round they drafted Tony Romo in, but it was I think it was later on as well. I mean, they do have a knack for finding
5th or 6th rounder, I believe. Yeah.
You have a knack for finding service.
And they traded for a quarterback 2 years ago, right? Last year.
Well, Trey Lance.
That's one thing that you got to think about with this. Trey Lance is going to be a good NFL quarterback. I still believe in that guy. So I mean, if they think he might be a good fallback option, then maybe you re-sign Parsons and you lean into Trey Lance because he's looked good in this preseason. They've given him every opportunity to throw. He's throwing a lot, but he's also running. He's showing all the stuff that you want to see from that style of quarterback.
Correct me. Didn't he just had a game with 5 interceptions, right, in the preseason?
Who is that?
Was that the whole preseason?
Who are you talking about?
That's the whole preseason, but they've been letting him throw like 20 times a game. He's letting it out this entire preseason. So I think they're trying to see what he's got.
I mean, I don't disagree with you guys. The Cowboys are kind of they're a victim of circumstance right now. I mean, the quarterback's the most important position in sports, probably in American sports, to be honest with you. But Michael Parsons and CeeDee Lamb, those are 2 tough guys to replace. Obviously, they got CeeDee Lamb locked up today or yesterday. That was a good deal for them. But man, losing Micah Parsons as a Cowboys fan. If I was a Cowboys fan, that would hurt me. That one would hurt.
If I can move into the hypothetical world here of Mr. Blakemore and saying Micah Parsons to the Bears, I've been seeing a lot of chatter about this on Twitter today, and some hypothetical. We give up, first round picks, both second round picks, and Khalil Herbert. I think I saw on Twitter today. Would you guys do whatever it takes to get a Micah Parsons to the Chicago Bears? I don't really think it's a realistic possibility, but hypothetically thinking, would you do whatever it takes to add Micah Parsons to the Chicago Bears, Kyle?
I would not, man. It's for me personally, unless you're talking about the quarterback position, I like the way the Packers and Patriots have ran their franchises for the last 20 years. You basically want to put the most money in your skill position players, receivers, and quarterback, and then kind of have the rest of the team be revolving door of young talent. I mean, you guys saw the outcome of what happened when we brought Khalil Mack here. He was one of the best pass rushers in the NFL. The Bears gave him, $156 million, and they really didn't have much to show for it after that. All they really had was dead cap. I mean, I love those defensive ends, but the game, it's an offensive game now, and if I was the Bears, that's where I'd be spending most of my money. Obviously, if you trade for Micah Parsons, he's going to get a fat payday, and I just don't think the Bears should handicap themselves like that. What do you think, Brandon?
Yeah, Go ahead, Brandon.
Dano?
I love Micah Parsons, but I don't love him on the Bears. I'll be honest. He's an incredible player. He's not a scheme fit by any means, and I think the guy can play anywhere, but do you want to get rid of a first in 2 seconds where you could possibly find an actual defensive end for a 4-3 defense versus paying Micah Parsons $180 million, like Kyle said?
And then
You got to also think, Kyle, you brought up a good point. Khalil Mack was a monster, but for about a year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, these players, I think they say they're in their prime from 23 to 24, and then you kind of start to lose the ability to beat people, especially with strength. But I don't love that fit. I really don't. I mean, if you were talking about trading like a Will Anderson, I'm all ears, but it's just different schemes for me.
So let me interject here. So you're saying Will Anderson's better than Micah Parsons?
No, I'm saying he's a true defensive end in a 4-3
okay.
defense.
Yeah, I would say, man, that I agree with Brandon on the fit stuff, but also, and like Kyle was saying, you got a $98 million contract invested into Montez Sweat. I don't remember the guaranteed money off the top of my head, but if you see teams that put themselves in these positions, they end up regretting it, where you divvy up that much cap. You're going to be talking about 45% of your cap just on your defensive ends, basically, that you're backing yourself into a pretty big corner with that. And that's what the Cowboys have done to themselves, with the way they've handled everything. They've backed themselves into a corner where they now have to make tough decisions. I don't want to see the Bears in that position, So, I mean, you would love to have a guy like Micah Parsons. I think, honestly, he can probably overcome any kind of scheme deficiency just by how good he is. But the amount of money you got to pay this guy, I'm not a fan of that idea at all. Plus the draft capital you got to give up to get him. No way.
And you still got to think we're going to have some big contracts coming up on the board here in a couple of years down the road. So,
you got to think about who you have. Yeah. And
what's
also,
going on, Michael? Thanks for joining us.
What's up, Mike?
Go ahead. Go ahead,
I was just saying, fuck the Cowboys. That's all. I just said fuck the Cowboys. We got Michael, Dan, PT57, Trax, everybody in here. Thank you so much for joining us. Hit the like, subscribe. Yeah, we appreciate you joining us.
Share it with some friends, guys.
Yeah, please share it with some friends. Hopefully you like what we're spitting out here. We're going to switch into some Chicago Bears fantasy football and see where our guys line up here. And you guys know how I feel about DJ Moore. We're going to start with him. He's a national treasure to me. And I just want to say last year, guys, DJ Moore set career highs in just about every category. 96 receptions, 1,364 yards, 8 touchdowns. He averaged 16.9 fantasy points. The start of his career kind of coincided with the end of Cam Newton's career. He had really awesome quarterbacks like Kyle Allen, Bridgewater, P.J. Walker, Sam Darnold to throw him the ball, and the guy still produced every year. I think we are all on the same page when we say Caleb Williams is certainly a sizable upgrade over any quarterback that he's had. However, there's never been a quarterback that's been able to sustain 2 top 36 wide receivers in fantasy football to this moment. Moore had a 28.9% target share last year. So going into this year with the additions of Roma Dunze, Keenan Allen, DeAndre Swift, Gerald Everett, having Cole Kmet out there, do you guys believe that he can replicate his season, be better than last season? He finished 6th in receiving yards, 7th in touchdowns, 6th in fantasy points, and 9th overall in fantasy points per game. Let's start off with Brando on this one. Where are you with DJ Moore? I have him at number 9 on my list currently right now.
Number 9 in wide receivers.
Correct.
That's high.
Oh
That's
man,
high
I place him outside the top 10, and I love DJ Moore and all the things that you said about him. I mean, honestly, the guy is the best wide receiver already that's ever played for the Chicago Bears. I believe that. You can make an argument, but I don't see a 29% target share, and I do think his statistics come down. I do still think, though, guys, DJ Moore is the skilled player to own on the Chicago Bears team. I want to say that. I don't want to stray from that. I think he's a better option than Keenan Allen for your fantasy team. If you're going to draft any one of these Bears players as your wide receiver too, DJ Moore is probably the only guy for me in that category. I would say that. And if Keenan Allen gets injured, I am very intrigued by the ability that Rome Odunze has as a possible future number 1 receiver, even over DJ Moore. But I don't, and I'm not disrespecting Keenan Allen. Incredible. He's going to have, I think, on Yahoo Fantasy Rankings, Keenan Allen in position is 1 spot lower than DJ Moore. So they have them kind of neck and neck. But I still think DJ Moore is the guy that Caleb Williams relies on.
Kyle?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Vernon. There's no doubt that DJ Moore to me is still the alpha male in Chicago. I have no doubt about that. I also, you go back and look at Keenan Allen's career. He's missed, let's see, in 2013, 15 games played. Next year, 14, 8, 1, 16. Then he had a good 3-year stretch, 16, 16, 16. And then he started to get hurt a little bit more again. He's only getting older. He's going to be 33 years old next year. I mean, I like Keenan Allen a lot. I think he's going to be a great slot receiver for the Chicago Bears. He's going to be a great number 2. I still think Keenan Allen and DJ Moore on the field when the Bears do 2 receiver sets. I think Rome Odunze will be on the field from time to time in 2 receiver sets, but for the most part, I think DJ Moore and Keenan Allen give the Bears the best chance to win right now, just because of the experience and just how their proven track record. But I agree with Brennan. I think at some point Rome Odunze, I think the Bears are probably grooming Rome Odunze to be the number 2 receiver and maybe even ultimately be the number 1 receiver for the Chicago Bears. I think DJ Moore will finish as a low-tier wide receiver 1 in fantasy or high-tier wide receiver 2. I wouldn't have a problem having him as my wide receiver number 1 in my fantasy team as long as my running back room looked good.
Okay.
As long as I have 2 number 1 running backs, basically. So, I mean, obviously you want to go over those guys, those Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, Tyreek Hill, A.J. Brown before you get into the DJ Moores. But I do think that DJ Moore's productivity is going to stay about the same. I mean, people are like, oh, well, now that Keenan Allen and Rome Odunze are there, his target share is going to drop, his yards are going to drop. Let's face it, guys. He got those 1,300 yards and 8 touchdowns with the Bears throwing for 2,600 yards total as an offense, or what? With if you put Bajan's numbers in there, it was 2,900, maybe something like that. I do still think that DJ Moore is going to finish with somewhere around 12 to 1,400 yards and 6 to 10 touchdowns, somewhere in there, around the same as he did this year. What do you think, Dustin?
I'm gonna run down some stats on DJ Moore that I have here. He's
Sure.
Mr. Durable, okay? He's only missed 2 games in his entire career. The guy doesn't miss games.
Yeah.
4 of 6 of the seasons, he's over 1,000 yards receiving, and he has an average of 14.3 yards per catch in that time. That's pretty damn solid. A couple of things that are not so, confidence-inspiring. He's never eclipsed 100 catches in a season, and he's never eclipsed double-digit touchdowns in a season. His highest, like you said, Sean, is 8. So, I mean, there's some good and some bad there. And then you take into account, like what you guys are talking about, where his target share is going to go down just given the amount of weapons that have been added to this team. His targets are going to go down. He's the number 36 overall player, according to Fantasy Pro, Sean, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And he's wide receiver 20. So, like, your ranking is a little high there. For
I actually made a
people.
mistake. I have him at wide receiver 12. I was looking at the wrong thing. Wide receiver 12.
Yeah, 9 seemed a little high, but I mean, 12 is still pretty damn high considering where he's going. And for that reason, I think he's kind of a steal if you're talking about fantasy drafts, because you can get this guy in the 4th round and he can be your number 1 receiver potentially if you stack 2 running backs and then you go with Jalen Waddle and and then DJ Moore, your receiver room is going to look pretty good there. So I mean, I agree. He's the unquestioned alpha and the number one receiver in this receiver room. I just would like to say, like, with the additions, it's possible you see a little slip, and you've never seen the guy catch 100 passes in a season. You've never seen him hit 10 touchdowns in a season. So those are some things to think about if you're taking him in the 4th round.
Sean, do you have his do you have where he's finished in fantasy for the last?
I do not. I know he finished 6th last year, and that's where
I believe the year before that he was like 36.
Yeah, he's never really
had a down season.
Play. So, but he's always put up the yards. And I'm gonna say this: coming off of having Justin Fields and Tyson Bagent last year, being able to finish 6th overall in fantasy points at the wide receiver position, and now playing with probably the best quarterback he's ever had, I think his receptions could go down, but his yards could go up with big plays and big fantasy points. So
his projected rank is 62 overall.
Well, I'm gonna keep him, my friends,
62
at 12.
62?
Yeah, I don't know where you got.
That's his projected rank
like
on
double.
Yahoo Fantasy. Projected rank.
He's
It
a
literally
steal
says
at
the
62.
words projected rank.
Well,
Yeah,
on Fantasy
no.
Pros, they have him at 35. I like him somewhere
Look at
right
that.
in that 3rd round. And I'm just going to
62.
say to anyone listening, you should like DJ Moore everywhere and anywhere you can get him. That's all I'm going to say on that.
Hell yeah, I agree. And there could be a case to be made that if everyone knew he was the number one target last year and he still put up those numbers, imagine what he's going to do when there's attention pulled away from him, you know? So you got to think about that too. I think he's a steal where he's projected. It's not 62. It's like I had 36, you got 35. We're all kind of in that same range.
Yeah.
But I mean, I draft him. I'm high on him for sure.
Yeah, it'd be great if he was there in the 3rd round. I have no
Yeah, guys,
problem.
and Brian brings up a good point too. A lot of, like we said, the target share was 29% with a quarterback that chose to run the ball over throw
Yeah.
it. So I agree that the target share is going to be spread more thin, but DJ Moore might also just get better looks from a quarterback who's looking to throw the ball than run it. Like
Well,
we
I
saw,
agree.
Caleb Williams rushing touchdown in the preseason he only ran that. He walked that ball in the end zone because the defense was completely on their heels over which one he's gonna zip it by. You know what I mean? He has that ability.
Yeah, I agree with Brandon. I mean, his target share may go down, but I don't think the Bears had one of the lowest pass attempts of any team in the NFL last year. Not to mention one of the lowest pass completion percentage of any team. So his targets may go down, but I don't think by much. I think the Bears, just the fact that their pass attempts will increase, DJ Moore will still get around 100.
Not his targets, but his target share will go down. His target
share decreasing doesn't necessarily mean his
targets increase. Because if the passing does increase, yes, then there's more opportunities.
Yeah, right. And I think I think you're going to see that. But I don't want to miss or forget about Rome Odunze, because I do think that he's going to be slowly integrated into this offense. And I think by midseason, you might see him start to take over. If I may, really quick, last year in deep passes, he was first in targets at 49, first in receptions at 23, first in yards at 783. He was first in contested catches, first in first downs. He had 140 targets, which was first last year, 92 receptions, which was second, 1,640 yards and 14 touchdowns. This guy is a dynamo, and I'll be honest, and Kyle knows this. We were together when the Bears drafted, and I was screaming at the TV. You guys would probably beat me up for this. I wanted Brock Bowers because I think of Brock Bowers more of not a tight end. He's a hybrid. He can rush out of the backfield. He has an incredible amount of rushing touchdowns on low carries in college. I think he had something like 100 and some odd carries and like 16 touchdowns or something like that. Something ridiculous. He can play the slot. He can play outside. He can go everywhere. He's a hybrid superstar of an athlete. I just thought he would have brought something more to this team outside of, especially with Shane Waldron's offense, who likes to use multiple tight ends.
If the Bears were going to go a different direction there, I would have wanted offensive line, not a Bowers. I mean, tight end seemed like a luxury considering that Cole Kmet just had a pretty solid breakout season last year, and the way they run their offense. I think that drafting Keenan Allen kind of turned where the Bears were focusing, because I think that they realized that Keenan Allen is probably a 1-year rental, but if we're talking about Rome Odunze, the guy is great after the catch. He's great at contested catches, and I think he might be the best suited on this team to work with Caleb in a scramble drill type of play. When the play breaks down, Rome is going to find his way back to the ball. He's going to be in sync with Caleb in that way. So I think that I agree with you, Sean. To start, he's the wide receiver 90. He's number 95 overall, wide receiver 42 is what I had him at through Fantasy Pros. So, I mean, that's a high price to pay for a third wide receiver. And like you said earlier, no quarterback has sustained two wide receiver 36s in a season, let alone three of them. And you're talking about a wide receiver 42 drafted. So you're taking a big risk drafting Odunze at his price, but he could be a red zone monster. And by middle to the end of the season, you could see him taking over those Keenan Allen snaps.
Injuries,
yeah, it's possible. So I mean, that you're banking on a lot of upside, but you got to understand you're taking a lot of risk drafting him at his price right now.
Yeah, I think trying to rank the player versus the fantasy player is a tough thing to do because I believe this is going to say I've seen enough. Like Sean, like you said, if you watch the kid at Washington, he was incredible, but he looks like a number one receiver, and Caleb Williams seems to be really comfortable with him. It looked like Caleb Williams during those scrambles plays, even the one where he ran in the end zone, he was looking at Rome Odunze. He was pump faking for Rome Odunze on the play that I think he ended up throwing to Cole Kmet or somebody, but it looks like that he's kind of keeping his eyes on Odunze. And Odunze's kind of got the trends to me that look like he's going to be a number one quarterback for sure in the NFL. And in fantasy, guys, if you're going to draft Rome Odunze, he better be a stasher. He's not in your starting lineup week one. And I'm going to even say this, as much as I love Odunze and I believe he is a number one receiver, there are better rookie receivers in fantasy football this year. So if you're going to, a rookie player in fantasy to me is always the guy that you're taking a risk with. It's a smaller risk if he's a higher pick. But if you're going to take a risk on a rookie wide receiver, I would put Odunze even maybe fourth or fifth on that list.
I agree, Brando. Kyle, what do you think about Odunze before we get on to this next topic?
Well, yeah, first of all, I think it would have been a win-win. Even if the Bears didn't draft Odunze and they drafted Brock Bowers, I love Rome Odunze. I think he's a great player. I think Brock Bowers would have been a great player for the Bears too, especially if he ends up being that hybrid Travis Kelce type player. I mean, you guys have all seen the impact Travis Kelce has had on the Kansas City Chiefs. It's absolutely remarkable. I do think Brock Bowers will be that type of player. But when it comes to Rome Odunze, I'm with Brennan and Dustin. He's a late-round stash for me. I mean, I like Rome Odunze a lot. I think the Bears are in a very good situation. Rome Odunze is kind of a luxury for them. I mean, they have Keenan Allen and DJ Moore. And like we talked about earlier, you want Keenan Allen and DJ Moore in those two wide receiver sets because the experience, those guys are NFL ready. They've seen this every scheme. They've seen every defense. They're up to NFL speed. Rome Odunze is going to have some growing pains, just like Caleb Williams and every rookie that comes in the NFL. And it's going to take him a long time to get comfortable. I would say by week 7, 8, 9, or if Keenan Allen or DJ Moore have a major injury, that Rome Odunze will probably make his name pretty quick in the NFL. I also agree with Brandon when it comes to this rookie wide receiver class. I would take Marvin Harrison Jr. over Rome Odunze in fantasy. As a matter of fact, I would take Marvin Harrison as early as round 2. I would take Malik Neighbors over him. I would probably take Brian Thomas over him. I would probably take Keon Coleman over him. And that's only because of opportunity, guys, right? I mean, like, Rome Odunze is buried behind DJ Moore and Keenan Allen. You go look at the rest of those guys. Those guys are probably all going to be starters from day one, I'm pretty sure. And, you can obviously get into, like, the quarterback play, like how bad will Daniel Jones affect Malik Neighbors' value. We could talk about that all day. But right now, Rome Odunze is more like on my radar, and he's not a must-have in fantasy by any means necessary. Remember, guys, when you're in a fantasy draft and you're trying to, whatever you guys are playing for, money, whatever it may be, think with your brain, not your heart, man. I love the Bears, but
Rome Odunze is going to be going high in these drafts in Chicago.
In Chicago, I agree. I don't think around the country.
Yeah, but I mean, nationally, 42. That's a high ranking for him, given where he's at.
Real quick, Dan says both sides of the line will need to be addressed next offseason. So when you were talking, Sean, about drafting Brock Bowers, Dustin mentioned offensive line. I really thought not the wide receiver. I'm not going to say the position. If Rome Odunze wasn't there at 9, the player Rome Odunze, because if he's not there, you're not drafting wide receiver. I would have wanted a Jared Verse or Dallas Turner there. I think
or a trade back,
edge rusher would have been the way I thought the Bears would have gone. When they signed Gerald Everett, my hope for Bowers kind of diminished slowly. But I thought if Rome Odunze didn't fall, I do still believe, guys, that Ryan Pohl's plan was to go after an edge rusher.
Dustin, real quick before we move on,
Let's do it.
you said that he was what was his rank for receivers?
42.
Rome Odunze?
Yeah.
Is that when you're on that website? Is that for a certain league, or is that for
That's just
every
Fantasy
league?
Pros overall
It's
ranking.
Fantasy Pros overall. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
And they
you
pull
also-
data from every fantasy outlet out there.
Are you talking about his ranking or ADP?
ADP.
Yeah, so you
No,
gotta be
his
careful.
ADP is 95. You're going
His
to
overall
take him
ranking
in
is
the 8th
84.
round.
Oh, they have him ranked 42nd wide receiver. Oh, I thought you were
42nd
talking
wide
about
receiver
ADP.
is what
I
I'm
was like,
saying.
wow, that's high.
Yahoo
gotta-
has him ranked 38th.
You got to be careful about when you're talking about ADPs and stuff like that, guys, because a lot of these guys,
I clearly said wide receiver 42, Kyle.
if you're in a dynasty league or a keeper league, you always draft young guys. Like you want Marvin Harrison Jr. in a keeper league because you can keep him for 10 years. You know,
I
right?
hate dynasty and keeper leagues. Guys.
Those guys get drafted a lot higher.
Well, I'll tell you.
An
What,
ADP average of every draft in the world. That's different.
Regardless of anything, 95 overall, taking them in the 8th round, that's a high investment for a guy that might not see a lot of targets to start the season.
It's a boomer bust pick. You're hoping you're it's a high risk, high reward pick is what you're doing there.
I'll
If
throw
you-
two more
it
rookies.
doesn't get hurt, you're in trouble.
I'll throw two more rookies at you that I think might start off a little bit better than Roma Dunze.
I know who you're going with here.
Donnie Mitchell and Xavier Worthy.
Oh,
You're
really?
not even to say, you're not
Surprised
even
me
to
with
say your guy, Sean?
Not Lad McConkey, dude.
Yeah,
Lad
where's
McConkey is
McConkey?
going to be a beast.
I'm a little nervous about Justin Herbert. We were just talking about injuries earlier, and that guy cannot stay on the field.
it's
for
funny
whatever
you say
He's supposed to be
McConkey-
ready for week 1. He's supposed
In
to
mock
be
drafts,
ready for week 1.
McConkey's actually going really high, man.
I'm gonna tell you-
surprised.
This draft this weekend, he went a lot higher than I wanted to take him, and I was kind of upset about it, to
he's-
be honest
he's going
with
high.
you.
He's another guy. He's going a little after Rome, though. He's going a little after Rome, and he's probably going to have more. He's definitely going to have more opportunity than Rome to start the season in terms of
Here,
getting
and here,
targets.
I'll tell you the only reason I went with Mitchell is because it looks like Josh Downs is not going to start the season, and it looks like Mitchell won the spot at the number 2 slot receiver for Indianapolis. And that dude's got some real skill. He's got some speed. He's got good hands. He could be a really big part of that offense to start the season. We'll
He's
see
a
when Josh
badass,
Downs
and he was
comes
a
back, because
steal.
I really like
He's a
Josh
steal.
Downs too.
Well, the problem with that is Indianapolis as a whole is just a huge question mark, man. Especially Anthony Richardson. You know, people keep talking about Anthony Richardson like he had some freak injury last year. He had 4 separate injuries in the span of between the preseason and the first 4 weeks of the season, 8 weeks, 4 separate injuries, guys. That, for a guy who runs the ball a lot, that's not a good recipe for success.
I
But I
can go
think
on
people-
saying I'm not a fan.
No, but I
but-
think
yeah,
people
but-
are. I think people are accounting for the fact that Joe Flacco is now their backup, guys.
Yeah, they signed the
He did
Flacconator.
for- Yeah, what he did for those receivers, what he did for Amari Cooper, what he did for Njoku in Cleveland, you know, like you could still maintain a solid offense. I do love AD Mitchell. I agree with you there.
They
And
signed
Xavier
Shane
Worthy,
Flacco.
he's been, and Xavier Worthy is
Worthy
solid-
might have a little bit of a
solid
harder path, especially if Hollywood Brown comes back. But you know,
No,
you still got Kelsey, you got
He's
Rice.
got game breaking ability. He's got
I
game
think
breaking
Worthy, I
ability.
would rank Worthy higher than Mitchell. I think for me personally, when you're drafting a fantasy
Worthy's
football,
definitely higher. Yeah.
especially PPR, yeah, you want a guy. You guys know you want players on powerful offenses. That's what you want.
Yep.
Offenses.
But a guy I love, a rookie I love is Leggett, and he's not on a powerful offense, so I don't.
Yeah,
really
I
see
mean, you
that.
may love him, but you're gonna
That's
draft.
tough. That's
Man,
tough.
I may
I don't know
go
about his
on record
first
and saying with Dave Canellis, I think Bryce Young and that offense might take a step forward and shock some people and
Definitely.
give you a quick
They're
upset.
definitely. They drafted a great
thinking-
tight end.
Vernon-
They traded for Deontay Johnson. They signed, and I think they still have Adam Thielen. But yeah, they drafted Leggett. They drafted a great tight end. They Jonathan Brooks, the running back, who
They got Dustin's boy
blowing
Deontay
up
Johnson.
fantasy list. Yeah,
Yeah, but
Fuck
Vernon,
Deontay Johnson.
where would you?
I don't know that I want guys. I don't know that I would want to touch anybody from the Panthers this year. I'm sorry. I really do like Bryce Young, but I don't know how much faith I have in David Canales.
Jonathan Brooks
Maybe
is
he'll
crawling
impact
boards,
Bryce
man.
Young positively.
Jonathan Brooks.
Maybe
Jonathan Brooks is climbing up
he'll
boards.
impact Bryce Young positively.
Well,
All right, gentlemen, we're gonna get this.
He's
ship
injured for the
back
first
on,
4 weeks of the season too. So
yeah, he's out.
Let's
Get
get
a little
the
off
train back on the track here. Back to what we were just talking about, because we just were talking about Ruma Dunze here. I'm going to kind of do a duo question, but we're going to start off with our quarterback first, because I noticed that when the rankings first came out, Caleb Williams was around the 17th or 18th ranked quarterback. In these first 2 preseason games, have you guys seen enough out of Caleb Williams as a fantasy quarterback to move him up into your top 12 and be confident and say, hey, this is a guy I would start from week 1 as a quarterback, or is he just still a backup guy for you guys? Dustin, I'll let you lead this one off.
All right.
Sean,
I'll tell you
banner.
this. I'll tell you this. I have a hard time not putting Caleb Williams there if I'm going to put Jaden Daniels there. Jaden Daniels is creeping up the boards too, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's a lot of people are projecting him to be a QB 10 potentially, the way his draft stock is going. And I think Caleb Williams is going to have a better season than Jaden Daniels. So like I'm going to definitely try to get a Brock Purdy or a Dak Prescott type of player to pair with a guy like Caleb Williams to where I can alternate week to week based on matchups. Caleb is like 98 overall, I believe. He's right there with Tua. He's right there with Brock Purdy. He's right there with Jaden Daniels. Like that's kind of the tier you're looking at quarterbacks. If you're waiting on a quarterback, I think you want 2 of those guys in that spot in that somewhere between 10th to 12th round. And if you're targeting Caleb, that's where you're going to get him. Now, again, we're talking a standard league. If we're talking a Chicago league,
we're talking non-Chicago league.
Caleb Williams is going to go a lot higher. You know, I like Caleb Williams. I like what his potential is. I think he's a 4,000-yard passer in his first season. I really do. So I got no problem taking him in the 11th round and alternating him with a Brock Purdy type of quarterback to get through my fantasy season so I can stack up running backs and receivers before then.
I think Caleb's a really good quarterback to have in a 2-quarterback league as your QB2. He's being drafted around 20th overall in a 2-quarterback league or a super flex league, I should say. Caleb, so like I said, guys, with rookies are risk, right? But if you're a gambler, man, Caleb's probably your best bet. I'll be honest there. Like CJ, if you had drafted CJ Stroud last year in fantasy, you would have had some really good weeks. Caleb is probably that guy this year for sure. And I'm not out, guys. We're not a biased network, but we're all grounded here. I'm not saying this because he's the Bears quarterback. I'm saying this because the Bears have the weapons that we've discussed on this show already. So guys like Rome Odunze, Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, Cole Kmet, DeAndre, I mean, the list goes on, right? So any quarterback dropped into that position there was 2 situations in the NFL that I would have, if I'm a quarterback being drafted, was the Minnesota Vikings and the Chicago Bears. And I feel like both quarterbacks, even J.J. McCarthy on the Vikings, probably would have been eventually somebody that a 2-quarterback league would have considered picking up. Yeah, I think Caleb is your best bet. If you guys want to take a big risk and bet on Caleb as your quarterback 1, he has the biggest chance. When he finally gets it figured out, he's going to be a fantasy monster. That I believe. I believe he will eventually be a top 5 fantasy quarterback in the NFL.
I think he's going to get you through some weeks this year. I think so.
If you're in a keeper league, you take that guy and stash him. Stash him.
Kyle, what you got?
Yeah, I mean, top 12, maybe top 12, 14. The problem with Caleb Williams is you just don't know what you're going to get from weeks 1 through 6. Eventually, Caleb Williams is going to get comfortable in the NFL, and he's going to be a good fantasy quarterback. But you asked the question, would I draft him and start in week 1? No, absolutely not. I love Caleb Williams. I think he's going to be a good quarterback in the NFL. I think he's going to be a good fantasy quarterback. But for me personally, I would want a veteran to be my quarterback week 1. And then once you get towards week 7, 8, 9, then you could start thinking about maybe plugging Caleb Williams. And it's like Dustin said, especially based off matchups. But I agree with Dustin. I think that Caleb Williams, for me personally, even right now, is a better fantasy option than Jaden Daniels. You know, people keep talking about how great Jaden Daniels is going to be. I like Jaden Daniels. I don't think that's the guy. But let's remember, guys, he's on the Washington Commanders. First of all, this is a team that's trading away playmakers like John Dotson. They're not adding talent around the guy. Second of all, there's going to be a lot of weight on his shoulder, on Jaden Daniels' shoulders. He's going to have to win the games by himself, basically by himself, kind of like Justin Fields did when he was here. I mean, that's just not a good situation for a rookie quarterback. There's going to be a lot of bad weeks for Jaden Daniels this season. I also wouldn't be surprised if he tries to do too much, runs the ball too much, and gets hurt. I mean, Jaden Daniels, as we all know, we've talked about this 1,000 times.
He's a twig. He
is not a big dude by any means. He is a skinny man. I like Jaden Daniels. I got nothing against him. I don't want to sit here and hate on him, but I would say overall by the end of the season, I think Caleb Williams will probably finish around quarterback 14.
Okay.
We got a
Guys,
new member in the
question.
chat.
Yes,
Look,
we
I
do.
want to ask a question. Gianfranco Paletti says Jaden Daniels is going to have the same year Anthony Richardson was supposed to have last year. Now, Sean, I want to ask you this question because you're high
Sure.
on Jaden Daniels. Would you take Jaden Daniels over Caleb Williams in a fantasy draft? Are you higher on Jaden Daniels than Caleb?
I think I would, just because of his rushing upside. I would be.
It makes a huge difference. Three
Like,
times the points.
Let me follow up with this. Would you take, because he's projected second round. I've done probably 10, 12 mock drafts,
Ooh,
guys. He goes in the
Jaden
second
Daniels?
round. No, would you take Caleb Williams over Anthony Richardson? That's not a player I love in
Yes,
fantasy.
I would 100%.
I do
am
not love Anthony
I'm not a
Richardson
fan.
in fantasy football.
I'm
By
not
any
a
means.
You're not going to
Fancy.
ever be. You're not going to have that choice. Anthony Richardson is going to be gone before Caleb
Right.
Williams. I mean,
Yeah,
that's not a choice.
But I'm saying I have more
Let's
faith.
consider that.
Well, first off, Richardson's going way too high, guys. For anybody
I
out there
agree.
listening that's playing fantasy, way too high. Second off, I have more faith in Caleb Williams overall season than I do Anthony Richardson. And I'm not even talking about injury. Anthony Richardson was a really good playmaker, but he struggles to pass the ball.
Yeah, I was gonna say, he cannot pass.
He's got an arm that doesn't make him an NFL passer.
I think he's
Those
a
are
better
two different
player.
things. Justin Fields proved that to everybody. You can have an arm and not be a processor in the NFL.
Anthony
I haven't
Richardson
seen it yet.
Field.
What were you going to say,
What? I
Kyle?
mean,
Anthony Richards is a better passer than Justin Field.
I think
But, I
so
mean,
too.
Vernon, you're right. You could choose between the two. I know they're going in two different positions, but if you have Anthony Richardson there and you're drafting round 3, you can think to yourself, I'm not going to draft Anthony Richardson. I'll wait till round 10 and draft Caleb Williams. I mean, that's an option.
That's
for
what
sure.
I'm saying. Like, are you better off spending the value of a second round pick or even a third? Like you said, I've seen him in the second, almost every mock draft.
I agree
Would
with
you
you.
spend the second round on Anthony Richardson over a late round pick on Caleb
Yeah,
Williams?
no, you're
Or
definitely.
QB1?
I'm not. Yeah, I'm not touching Anthony Richardson at his draft position.
God,
No way.
no.
But I think Jaden
Because
Daniels
I'm
and Caleb.
touching Anthony Richardson anywhere.
You guys, isn't there always one of these? Isn't there always one of them? Right? Isn't there always some quarterback that somehow gets pushed into like the top 3 rounds in fantasy? And it's like, why? Where the hell did
Yeah,
this
like
guy?
Patrick Mahomes.
Here,
Don't do that
I'll
either,
be
guys.
honest. I would take right now, and I know you guys might call me crazy, but I would take Jared Goff and Baker Mayfield before I touch Anthony Richardson. They got better
Well,
offenses.
again,
They're in their systems.
Jared Goff for sure. I don't know about Mayfield's got to do it.
Baker
another year,
Mayfield
man.
finished as a top 10 fantasy quarterback last year in Tampa Bay's offense, and he didn't lose any weapons.
We're
You
not
guys can't
advising any
discount-
viewers to draft Baker Mayfield. as
I am
the
not
number one
saying
quarterback.
draft Baker Mayfield. I'm saying I might rather have him, though. He took me to the playoffs last year.
Don't
Baker
blame us for your
Joe
loss,
Burrow got
guys.
hurt. I rode
guys
Baker
can't
Mayfield
discount-
last year.
You can't discount the fact that rushing touchdowns are going to count for 3 times as much as passing touchdowns. Like that's
Sure.
just a huge thing. You know what I'm saying? So Anthony Richardson, if he gets it together enough to just run for 8 touchdowns this year, then the value that he's giving you over a Jared Goff is just much higher. It is just statistically. The risk with him is super high. I agree, but that's why I was kind of leaning towards that Jaden Daniels Caleb comparison because they're both right there in the same tier. And we're Chicago guys, so I mean Caleb Williams. To me, I'm taking Caleb over Jaden Daniels, and I am discounting that rushing because I do think Caleb is going to be that much better of a passer than Jaden Daniels.
Just like you said, you also have to account for the risk. I mean, obviously, we already know that Anthony Richardson was hurt 3 or 4 separate occasions last year, but Jaden Daniels, if he's going to have to put this team on his shoulder and carry the team, his injury, the chances of him getting injured are much higher than Caleb Williams.
I agree. I just said, yeah. I'm not touching Jaden Daniels over
I think
Caleb.
it's-
I don't think so.
And like I said, I think we all agree that Jaden Daniels could be a great playmaker in the NFL, right, guys? I mean, I just don't like the Washington Commanders. I don't like
I think
anything.
Jaden Daniels is going to have some incredible weeks in fantasy. He's not
So
a guy who's
Caleb-
draft as a starter.
Boomer bust. Yeah, so
And it's going to be really tough to dictate which weeks he's going to do it, guys. So
Right.
as fantasy advice from us stay away from Jaden Daniels as your starting quarterback. If you want to stash a guy in the bench, by all means.
Yeah,
I
pair,
agree
well,
100%.
yeah. Pair
Justin
him with
Fields.
somebody and play the matchups. Pair him with a veteran that you can trust and play the matchups. Yes.
Yeah,
sir.
Justin Fields last year was one of the worst fantasy quarterbacks, but he had 3 weeks with 45+ points. I mean, that's the point.
Yeah, he did. I drafted him in the fifth
And
round.
here-
And you don't, and guys, you don't want to be playing that game in fantasy football.
And here,
Well,
and
you don't wanna be
I'd say,
playing
I'd
Like
say
you
to
said,
back
Brandon,
that up.
good stash, and then you play him against a poor rushing defense. That's the week you
Or
would
you play him if he starts. Let's say he starts to take off in the second half of the year. He's a consistent 25 to 30 point scorer in fantasy. Then you know you got a safe play every week. But
And
he's
if I
not
may
going to be a
back this up a
quarterback
little bit,
week one.
if I may
What you
back
got,
this
Sean?
up with CJ Stroud, CJ Stroud had 3 boom weeks in a row. Then he would have 3 okay weeks.
Yeah,
Then
he
he
was
would
very
have
up.
those boom weeks. That's
Yeah,
what you get
'cause-
with a rookie quarterback.
Yeah, the season he had didn't translate to fantasy football. Now, if you had taken him and like in your 13th
Started
round of
him.
fantasy, you got a good player. You know what I mean? Like
Well,
if you took
it
him in a bottom round, it was
Played
a
the
good ad.
What'd you say, Kyle?
So it translated to fantasy football when he played the Buccaneers. 5 touchdowns and 500
Here,
yards.
here, if you happen to play him
Mitch
in those boom
Trubisky
weeks,
did
you
that to the
probably won.
Buccaneers.
You know what I mean? I mean, Tatara in our league had CJ Stroud and Tank Dell in those boom weeks, and he was scoring 80 points with those 2 guys alone. That's just pure luck,
Oh,
but
Lord.
he had
Oh,
him,
Lord.
he started him, and there you go. You know, so
Are
it's a
you
game.
guys? Are you,
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Having said that, are you guys stacking Caleb Williams and one of these receivers, Keenan Allen or DJ Moore? What do you think of that? Because you're talking about Tank Dell and CJ Stroud, how they won this guy matchups. You know, do you
I'll tell
feel that
what-
confident in this Bears offense?
I'll tell you what I did this weekend. I stacked Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison Jr. and feel really good about that.
No, yeah, that's a little different.
I don't know if I feel the same with the
I'm a
Bears. to
firm
start
believer
this game.
against drafting any 2 players from the same fantasy team, but if you're going to do so, a wide receiver and a quarterback makes sense because for one to accumulate points, the other has to. But I try to avoid drafting 2 players from the same team at all costs, especially if you're a guy who's focused on bye weeks and plays that hard. But
Well, 2 receivers from the same team for sure, but
I did take
a quarterback
Jamar
and a
Chase.
receiver.
I did take Jamar Chase and T. Higgins in Chase's rookie year, and that won me a championship for sure. So I can't
So
say it doesn't
you're saying
work.
it does work.
It does work. Yeah.
No,
All right. Well, this leads us perfectly into our next segment here, guys. For our Dynasty and 2 Keeper League people out there, do you guys believe that Caleb Williams and Roma Dunze are the dynamic duo of the future? You guys in Dynasty and 2 Keeper League should be nabbing these guys up and saving them because, say, the next 2-3 years down the road, they're going to be, let's say, Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams. Kyle?
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely have no problem taking Roma Dunze and Caleb Williams in a keeper league now, or a dynasty league. Now, I would, if the option was Caleb Williams and Marvin Harrison Jr. or Caleb Williams and Malik Neighbors, I'd rather have those 2. But I mean, if you're saying like if you took Caleb Williams and by the time it came back around to you, the best available is Roma Dunze, I'd have no problem with that whatsoever. 0. I think they're both going to have really good careers and they're going to do it for the Chicago Bears. I'm with these guys. I'm fine with taking a quarterback, wide receiver from the same team. I do not like taking running back, wide receiver from the same team or wide receiver, running back, because they're not getting each other's scoring chances is what they're doing. I mean,
Yes.
unless you're talking about, and I think we all know it. We've all had the handicaps where you have a starting running back on a team and then you draft his backup just in case he gets hurt. But that guy plays the bench until he gets hurt. You're never starting both of them in the same week.
Brando?
Yeah, I think they're both valuable players on a keeper league, dynasty league. Again, I don't love if I were to go after a rookie wide receiver like Kyle said, I'd probably go after one of the other 2 guys, but not because I believe they'll be better. I think when Roma Dunze has the opportunity to be on the field more than anyone else, he's going to be the biggest impact player on the Chicago Bears. In the future, we're going to see that. I believe he is the best wide receiver on the Bears, just not today. But if I'm taking 2 guys in a keeper league, I'm going after probably a Brian Thomas or Malik Neighbors or Marvin Harrison Jr. a pair of Caleb Williams. When it comes to keeper leagues, guys, if you're taking a rookie quarterback, I'm not going to say this as a Bears fan, I'm going to say it as a fantasy football fan. You got to take Caleb Williams. That's got to be your priority in a keeper league.
Well, if you're talking the same thing we were talking with just a standard draft, you know, are you taking Jaden Daniels over Caleb Williams? If you're a Caleb Williams guy, then that's obviously the guy you're going to go with. I would say that this year, Odunze is going to need a little time to grow. But if you're doing a keeper league next year,
For Dynasty.
yeah, keeper or dynasty next year, Odunze is going to take off. I think we can
All
see
three
him
of
put
them
up
are.
8 touchdowns this year. just in limited action, that guy is going to be one of the best receivers in the league pretty quickly. And I think he's replacing Keenan Allen next season in this Bears offense.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, it makes total sense to pair those two together because Caleb is going to be a really good quarterback in the league. And Odunze is going to be his potentially number one option, but definitely number two option.
You guys, here's a good point by PT57 here. What about 4-point pass touchdown leagues? Well, for that scenario, I would still have no problem taking Caleb Williams and Rome Odunze, but I'd rather have Rome Odunze and Malik Neighbors, Marvin Harrison, if it's a 4-point pass touchdown league. But just because you obviously if pass touchdowns are less scoring, then obviously you're going to get higher value from receivers and running backs. It's just not, it has nothing to do with Caleb Williams.
I'm in a 4-point passing touchdown league currently.
So you want Derrick Henry?
Well, no, I have not drafted a rushing quarterback. I actually had Jalen Hurts as my keeper the last 2 years.
Yeah,
that's another reason. That's another reason why I went after Kyler Murray, because he's going to give me those rushing yards. He's going to get 4 to 6 rushing touchdowns on the year.
Oh, yeah.
So effectively acting as your second or third.
Yeah, and I'm assuming that Lamar Jackson was probably kept in that league.
Lamar Jackson was not kept, but Lamar Jackson was also taken in the first round, and he was taken right after I took Marvin Harrison Jr. Yeah. I was not. I get to keep him, and I want him for a few years. So
I love Lamar Jackson.
What?
You ended up with Kyler Murray over Lamar Jackson because you got Marvin Harrison Jr.
Well, he chose Marvin Harrison over Lamar Jackson. Yeah,
I chose. Yeah, I did.
You got some guts, Sean.
You know why?
Sean, I'll give you
because I'll grab another quarterback. I'm not going to grab another Marvin Harrison. I'll never see him again in a keeper league. And Marvin
Harrison might have some growing pains, though.
He could, but I'm willing.
I don't think so.
We can say Marvin Harrison's going to be the best wide receiver in the NFL. The MVP of the league is about to get better. I truthfully believe that. Like, Lamar Jackson is about to be better. For all you fantasy players out there, Lamar Jackson is going to be better this year than he was last year.
I don't think Lamar. I actually wanted to take Lamar Jackson. He just went 8th, and we all talk about generational talents. I had to go with Marvin Harrison Jr.
Yeah, no, I mean, all the reports out of Arizona are that this guy's already the leader of that receiving room, a leader on that team. He's already got all the physical traits, man. Like Marvin Harrison Jr., it's rare that you're confident in drafting a rookie receiver in the late first, early second round. I have not hesitated once when I've had the opportunity to draft him in a mock draft. Not once.
Yeah, I took Jamar Chase second as a rookie.
And Dustin, forget the what you're hearing and all the reports that are trying to get. You've been watching those catches. Absolutely.
It's insane. It's
a guy.
Him and neighbors, same deal. It's like
both of them.
I'd be happy with either one of those guys.
I personally believe there's only one quarterback in fantasy football that should be taken in the second round, and that's Lamar Jackson.
Oof.
I wouldn't take another quarterback anywhere in the first 2 rounds but that guy. I wouldn't touch any other quarterback.
Get you those rushing touchdowns for sure.
What about Josh Allen?
No, Josh Allen.
Not a chance.
Josh Allen
won't go in the top 2 rounds.
He's
Brandon, not going to go in the top 2 rounds.
Brandon, just for clarification, and I know this for a
fact.
Josh
Allen's ranked higher.
Yeah, we just did quarterbacks. Since 2020, the most top 3 finishes of any quarterback at 41% is Josh Allen. Yeah. Lamar Jackson is down at 23%. It's half. He's half.
I still take, like I said, guys, my Lamar Jackson projection is based on this coming season. I think that Derrick Henry, Lamar Jackson's running game has been terrible. It's been terrible. And you can say, well, Gus Edwards came out and had a good 4 weeks. It's been terrible.
Well, it's not been terrible. It just hasn't been flashy names at the running back position.
No, and it hasn't been consistently good over the course of a season once. So I think Lamar Jackson is the best rushing game on the Baltimore Ravens, which is why I place him at second round. I think second round quarterback in the NFL.
Maybe the most dynamic runner. I don't know if he's a better pure running back north to south than Derrick Henry, man.
No, then the guys who have been on his team, absolutely.
Well, but Bernie, now he's got Derrick Henry, who's probably they're saying
exactly. That running game is. See, I think this is the general consensus that Derrick Henry is going to hurt Lamar Jackson, and for any person that's thinking that, We'll discuss this after the season ends. I really don't think that's going to be the case.
I think his rushing touchdowns are going to go up because I do think Derrick Henry is going to be around the league lead 15 to 18 rushing touchdowns this year in that offense. Where did Gus Edwards have last year? 12?
Yeah.
I'll take that 12 to 15 bet all day. I don't think so.
If he plays the entire season, if Gus Edwards broke butt can wind up getting 12 touchdowns, Derrick Henry should be able to walk in for 15 to 18.
Let's get to the Bears.
Let's talk about our Bears running back, DeAndre Swift, guys.
Yeah, let's do that because I have a great question for you guys. So Swift here is known as an elite pass catching running back. I'm looking at the tight end position. His touchdowns have been something that people have always had a problem with. Going back to the start of his career in 20, he had 10, 21, he had 7, 22, he had 8, 23, he had 6. Last year, he had 6 touchdowns vultured at the 1 yard line by none other than the push in Jalen Hurts. So that number would have been 12. His career finishes in fantasy points so far have been 18, 10, 16, and 24. His current ADP is 19 and overall 56. Where do you guys think he'll finish in this Chicago Bears offense? Above that 19, below that 19, over the 56, below the 56? What are you guys thinking? Dustin, what do you got here on our guy, DeAndre Swift? And really quick, what up, Michael? Thank you for joining us. Greatly appreciate you being with us, buddy.
Thanks to everybody in the chat. PT57 is being very active. We appreciate you, boss. Like, subscribe, share with your friends.
Thanks, guys.
I'm going to start out by saying that I got very high hopes for DeAndre Swift, and I think he's going to have a breakout season. I really do. And then I'll tell you why with some stats, all right? So he's got 1 season with over 1,000 yards rushing. That was last season, right? Great offensive line with Philly, but, it's his first season he's coming off of with 1,000 yards. 4.6 yard average per carry for his career. Highest yards after contact for his career was last year at 407 yards after contact. Highest broken tackles for his career was last year at 21. His lowest targets, his lowest receiving yards, his lowest receptions for his career was last year with the Eagles. All right.
39 receptions.
I saw him on Fantasy Pros at number 73 overall at running back number 24. So, I mean, we're similar in our rankings a little bit, but I would say that he's going to greatly overperform either one of those rankings because the amount of receptions that the targets he's going to get in this offense with Caleb Williams, the amount of receptions he's going to get is going to double this season. He's going to be I'm thinking Matt Forte style guys, like close to 1,000 yards receiving, close to 1,000 yards rushing. We're looking at 15 touchdowns. This gentleman is going to break out this year. I am comfortable having DeAndre Swift as my number 1 running back if I go super high on receivers to start. I mean, as my number 2, I feel freaking great because I think he's going to just blow up this year. I mean, you're looking at drafting him in the 6th, 7th round. That's just a great price for a guy that's going to have the opportunity he's going to have, who's coming off the season he's had where he's actually done things that he hadn't done in his career, which is break tackles and make guys miss and get yards after contact. Those are things that he's going to need to do in this Bears offense. I think he's ready to do that. So I'm super stoked on DeAndre Swift.
On your 15 there, he could have very well had 12 if he wasn't vultured last year at the 1 yard line.
That's what I'll say is the only concern with him.
With Caleb Williams.
Not just Caleb Williams, because Roschon Johnson is a big-bodied back that they might throw in at the goal line. Khalil Herbert is a guy who runs hard and runs right into a pile and can push it. So DeAndre Swift is not your goal line guy. He's going to need big plays to get into the end zone. That's always been his thing. And I think the Bears are in for some big plays with him. So that's why I'm super high on him. We get down to the goal line. I don't know that he's going to have those opportunities still with this team. But if he makes enough people miss and makes some big plays, get some 40-yard touchdowns, if you got those bonuses in your league, you're in for a hell of a year with DeAndre Swift.
Kyle?
Yeah, I mean, I like DeAndre Swift. I do. I definitely like him better than his ADP and his ranking. My expectation, I think Justin's a little lofty for me personally. The Matt Forte comparison or the 1,000 on 1,000, that's for me personally, that's just a little high. I mean, first of all, DeAndre Swift has never played a full season in the NFL, especially when he was on the Lions. He constantly had injuries. He was pulled in and out of games. He's always had limited usage to try to
Last year
limit.
he played 16 games, right?
Yeah, 16
Yeah.
out of 17.
It's his first
Yeah.
time.
16 out of 17. So
It's
he's
a good
still
time to have him.
even then it was a limited basis. I will say that the last year was the most carries he's ever had, and it's the healthiest he's been. So that's good. I just think that personally, I think Roschon Johnson's going to be more involved than people think. I think Roschon Johnson is going to be a good number 2 running back in the NFL. I think he's even going to be worth having on a fantasy team, especially if DeAndre Swift gets hurt. Obviously, I would put my personal projections for DeAndre Swift around 1,200 yards rushing and around 600 yards receiving, and probably around 6-7 touchdowns, which is fine. Yeah, much better than his EDP or his ranking. But I would just say with Swift, it's the same thing as every other player who's had injuries in the past. Just buyer beware. If you do have DeAndre Swift, I personally, if I draft DeAndre Swift, I am drafting Roschon Johnson in the later rounds if he's still there. I am going to handicap him. Just like if I drafted James Conner, I am drafting Trey Benson if he's still there in the later rounds.
When
But-
are you drafting Roschon?
For me, if I
Forward
drafted
your hat on
DeAndre Swift, I would draft Roschon around the 10th, 11th round.
What if you didn't draft DeAndre Swift?
I would draft Roschon Johnson around the 14th round, 13th, 14th.
Okay.
I'll be honest, I'm a huge, and Kyle knows this, huge believer in Roschon Johnson. What you got, Brando?
Well, 2023, Shane Waldron was the Seattle Seahawks offensive coordinator, ran 60% pass plays, 39% run plays. In the preseason, he's run about a 50-50 split, but I don't think he wanted to give Caleb more opportunities to get injured. He passed the ball heavily once Tyson Bagent came in, Brett Rippon came in. I do think the Bears finish around a 55-45 split, passing more often than running. And I do think when they're in pass protection specifically, you're going to see a guy like Roschon Johnson on the field. I don't think DeAndre Swift serves you the best. He's not the best player of the three in that role, but they're in passing downs. That doesn't eliminate DeAndre Swift, like Dustin said. I think he's going to get I think DeAndre Swift's going to do his most damage as a fantasy player, as a pass catcher, to be honest. Khalil Herbert has actually been running the ball really hard. I don't know if he's not a better just I formation running back than DeAndre Swift is. But like Dustin said a couple of weeks ago when we were on CSP, you're going to see DeAndre Swift standing next to Caleb Williams and shotgun probably a lot. Single back, yeah. But I do think if you split, let's say we split a 50-50 run pass and DeAndre Swift's not the guy out there for pass protection, there's probably about 30% of the plays DeAndre Swift won't be in on the field, or even more. Sorry, there's probably about 65% of the plays DeAndre Swift won't be on the field, I would say. But I don't know. I think, no, sorry, 65, that doesn't make sense. 35, I was right.
Did you notice that DeAndre Swift did not get on the field in DeAndre Swift did not get on the field in preseason, guys.
Yeah, they kept him off. They were trying to keep him
There's
healthy,
a reason for that.
And he played well when he was on the field. But I still think Kyle's right. I mean, 1,000 yards, anything for DeAndre Swift would really surprise me. It really would.
Sorry, Brandon. Dustin, what'd you just say?
There's a reason that DeAndre Swift was not on the field. It's because they don't want to show what they're going to do with this guy. They don't want.
But Shane Waldron has never run the ball more than pass the ball.
Played. He played like 2 snaps in the first actual
about
preseason.
as much as the ones did.
No. He was not out there with the ones. It was a lot of Khalil Herbert. It was a lot of.
I don't think Dustin. I don't think DeAndre Swift was drafted to be. He wasn't signed to be a pure running back. It's just not the purpose he serves.
That's why I'm super high on him.
He's had 40+ receptions his entire career, except for last year, which he had 39. So he fell 1 under the mark. He's going to have more than 40 receptions. He's going to do his damage in the receiving game. I really believe so. And when they're running the ball down your throat, which the Bears don't really have, they're not built that way. The interior offensive line is questionable. But when they're running the ball down your throat, he's not going to be the running back on the field. I don't personally believe that. It's going to be Roschon Johnson or even Khalil Herbert. Herbert's a guy who should probably get to the edge. But I do think pass protection is going to take Swift off the field on plays that Caleb Williams might be able to alter. So if it's a drawn-up pass play and they want somebody in there on pass protection and Caleb switches it to the run, I don't think Swift's going to be on the field for those plays. So he's going to lack opportunity just for his inability to pass protect. I believe that. But I will say this. DeAndre Swift rushed for 1,000 yards on the Eagles last year. And, guys, the Eagles it's infamously known for being one of the biggest timeshares in the backfield of any team in the NFL.
I mean, I think a
Silver
lot of,
Steel.
I think a lot of people
That's Sean.
are talking about DeAndre Swift like he's a terrible pass protector. He's not. He's not.
He's not.
Khalil Herbert.
Yeah,
He's
no,
not.
he's not.
No, but he's not Roshan Johnson either. And
Of course,
I don't think,
6'2", 220 pounds. Of course.
and I also don't think he's the guy you want out there during pass protection because you want to keep him healthy, man. You don't want him taking on defensive ends, chipping defensive ends and outside linebackers. I don't think that's what he's not going to be on the field for those plays.
I think Silver Steel's agreeing with Dustin here, saying he's going to be a major factor in Caleb's success. We saw a small sample size of that during the preseason.
Yeah, don't worry about what he says.
Truly believe
That's
that.
my brother.
No,
I mean, yeah,
correct me if I'm wrong. Best pass blocker at the running back position, Roshan Johnson. Best all-around back, probably DeAndre Swift. Best straight line runner is probably Khalil Herbert.
Guys, let me say this.
All three
that's a decent assessment, Sean. I would agree with
Yahoo Fantasy's projection for Khalil Herbert are a little different than Draft Bros. They have him in position ranking, they have him at 21. So he's higher than 24. In their overall ranking, though, he's 78. Do I feel like DeAndre Swift is a safe pick there? Yes. Do I think if you're like looking at in Dustin's perspective, he's a 1,000 yard guy? I don't know if I love him
I
more
said
than
close
70.
to 1,000. I'm thinking 1,600 total. I'm thinking 1,600 total yards. And
That's a fair number.
Guys,
That's a fair number.
They didn't just pay him the amount they paid him to not use him. He is going to get utilized a lot. And he's going to get utilized. PT57 says right here, he's worried that they'll all get 5 carries a game.
But
no
Dustin,
fucking
what do
way
you-
that
what do you-
happens.
what do you
DeAndre
think-
Swift is going to get fed the ball,
What do you-
guys.
What do you think
I'm
he's going to
telling
do?
you, you guys remember this conversation because DeAndre Swift is going
Dustin,
to
I don't
be the top
disagree with
running-
you. I don't
What do you think
disagree
he's
with
going to do as a running back? What do you,
you. Guy 3
Dustin,
years
give
for-
me his running statistics.
800 some yards on like 190 carries, something like that. 800 to 900
So you think
yards.
he gets 7? You could think he gets 800 yards passing too.
Yeah.
1,600 yards.
Yeah. I think he's going to unlock this offense, guys.
I think he finishes between
I think at the
between
beginning-
700 to 800 yards rushing and about 500 to 600 yards passing, maybe.
I think at the
Maybe.
beginning of the year, you're going to see a lot more DeAndre Swift than you do until Caleb gets acclimated into the league. That
I
he
think
may
you're going to see a lot of Khalil Herbert. I think the preseason kind of opened my eyes to the fact that the Bears actually really like Khalil Herbert. That's
There's
why I
nothing
think
If
that's
the
like
preseason
Khalil
opened your
Herbert.
eyes, bro, you're blind. I'm sorry.
Khalil
The preseason
Herbert-
don't mean shit.
Khalil Herbert played really
the
good
preseason
football.
don't mean shit. I'm telling you, DeAndre Swift
You don't play.
is
You don't
going
play
to
the
be a
guys.
big focal point of this
Play
offense.
the guys you love in the preseason a lot, man.
Exactly.
Herbert played in the preseason a lot. You don't
Yeah,
do that
but-
to the guys you love.
Yeah,
They're
but
not-
remember when Walker came back in Waldron's system, Charbonnet still played like a 40% split. He's
Okay,
not a
but
guy
DeAndre
who
Swift
uses-
is Kenneth Walker mixed with Charbonnet.
He's not a guy
He
who
can do
uses
both of
one
those
running
things.
back.
He-
Yeah,
he can
did
do both
Kenneth
of those
Walker
things.
get 1,600 yards last year?
No, because he got
He's
hurt.
better than DeAndre
No.
Swift.
No,
He's
DeAndre,
better than
no,
DeAndre
Kenneth
Swift.
Walker did not have 1,600 yards last year.
Sean, let's reel it in here, man.
Yeah, we're gonna bring this in. We're gonna get back into our tight end position because we're running out of time and running up
Hey,
against
we
it.
never touched on Keenan Allen. We talked
talked about him a little bit, but we're moving away from old bones. We're moving on to young bones. How about our last year?
Let's do the projections real quick. I got Keenan Allen around 900 to 1,100 yards. I think he's going to be a good wide receiver 3 or 4 in fantasy. I'd be careful, buyer beware. I think Roma Dunze eventually is going to take that spot, and I think Keenan Allen is still going to have to deal with injuries like he has his entire career. He's only getting older, guys. That's it. Keenan Allen is a rental. Chicago Bears. The future is Roma Dunze. Keenan Allen's not going to be here next year. They're not going to pay him $53 million, whatever he's asking for 2 years.
No, sir.
That's not going to happen. If I were the Bears, I would focus on getting Roma Dunze up to speed as quickly as possible. And by week 10, 11, 12, he would be on the field for me more than Keenan Allen. That's just my opinion.
I have him about 60 catches, maybe 850. I don't expect Keenan Allen.
900 yards for me. That wouldn't surprise me at all.
Fantasy
No.
Pros has him as the number 74 overall player in the draft, and they got him as the number 34 overall receiver. A couple things about Keenan Allen. He gets talked a lot about his injury history. Now, in the last 7 years, he's only missed 12 games. So, I mean, like, that's still a decent amount, but that's not as bad as we have it in our head. You know what I'm saying? The other thing about him, the same
He's
thing.
older. He's older.
Yeah, for sure. But I think that he's going to be a little more durable this year than we're giving him credit for. I think he's going to be Mr. Reliable. The one knock on him is the same as DJ Moore. And these top two receivers, neither one of them have had double-digit touchdowns in a season. So, I mean, I think that opens up some space for Rome Odunze in my mind. And then also, just last year, guys, he was the unquestioned number one option in an offense.
He had a fantastic year until he got hurt.
And he was in an offense that threw the third most in the league, and he was the number one option. This year, we're not going to be the third most throwing team in the league, and he's not going to be the number one option. So I'm looking for some regression from Keenan Allen, but I do still expect him to be a solid return at that investment, that 35th overall receiver.
I mean, 60 and 850, say he were to do that, that's a solid number 3 receiver in fantasy.
So what do you got?
Sure. Yeah, he's your number 3. That's a very good way to put it.
So we all agree, right? I said wide receiver 3 or 4, right? Like
yeah, absolutely.
Wide receiver 3 flex.
I'd be ecstatic if he was my number 3.
By the way, Pro, what site do you use for your
Fantasy Pros?
Fantasy Pros.
Every person you've mentioned so far is at least 3 spots or less off the Yahoo Fantasy ranking.
Sweet.
3 spots or less. Just want to get that out there, guys.
They're all relatively close.
Hey,
Brandon,
Sean,
anything you want to say about Keenan Allen before we go to tight ends?
yeah, I love Keenan Allen. I Yahoo has him ranked at 24th in positional ranking, and I think it's perfect. I think that's right where he should be. I think he should be slightly after DJ Moore. I think Keenan Allen's a borderline. If you're going to take him as your wide receiver 3, he's going to work out for you for sure. I think he's going to be a wide receiver 2. I think early in the season, Caleb Williams is going to rely heavily on Keenan Allen. That's what I believe.
He's Mr. Reliable. I agree.
I think in third and short, if in passing game, that's the guy you want to look for, if not Cole Kmet for sure.
You're gonna get those 3-yard pass.
I think DJ Moore is the guy who's going to get the deep field stuff. And to be honest with you, Kyle, you said in 2 receiver sets, Rome Odunze probably won't be there. I think Keenan Allen's the guy that comes off the field in 2 receiver sets. Rome Odunze is
I think they're going to mix it up.
Rome Odunze is of all the receivers on the Bears, to me, Rome Odunze is the purest outside receiver on the roster.
The coaching staff already said it. They said early on in the season, 2 receiver sets would be Keenan Allen, Rome Odunze, or DJ Moore.
No doubt.
Jim Waldron already said it. He said it.
All right, let's reel this in because we're up against it here, boys. I'm going to throw you guys for a little loop because you just, Brandon, just said you think that Keenan Allen is going to be his favorite target to start the season. Well, gentlemen, I wouldn't be surprised if that was Cole Kmet to start the season. Historically, we all know rookie quarterbacks love to hit their tight ends, especially at the start of their careers. Last year, Cole Kmet had a career year at 73 receptions, 719 yards, 6 touchdowns, and gobbled up 36 first downs. In Shane Waldron's tight end friendly offense and Caleb Williams under center, is there another career year for Cole on tap? I have his predictions myself. I'm going to say yes. I have him at about 80 catches, 825 yards, and somewhere in between 8 to 10 touchdowns. I know Gerald Everett is there. And I hate to say this, boys, that's only 100 yards more than last year and only 9 more catches than last year. It's not like I'm like jumping off the crazy end here. It's not that much.
You kind of are. We'll talk about why.
Well, yeah. There's some factors as to why you should expect regression from him, right? Because we added Keenan Allen. We added DeAndre Swift. We added Rome Odunze. Last year, Cole Kmet was the number 2 target in this offense, right?
Sure.
And we discussed this previously, that the passing game was not as prolific as we expected to be this year. They did not pass a lot, not a lot of completions, not a lot of yards. So there is going to be more to go around from that pie, but that pie got a whole lot smaller for Cole Kmet. You said the 73 catches last year. That was on 90 targets. I don't see how you get Cole Kmet 90 targets in an offense with Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, and DeAndre Swift. I think Cole Kmet's relegated to the 4th or 5th option as a receiving option in this offense. I think he was the tight end 8 last year. He had a pretty solid season, but I don't see how you can expect him to progress if the opportunities are going to go down so much. You know, I just think it's naturally going to happen. I agree with you that tight ends are that safety blanket for rookie receivers, but I just don't see him. He's a backup tight end in fantasy for sure. He's the tight end 17 for Fantasy Pros right now. I'm not super high on him. I think we're going to see a lot. And I haven't even mentioned Gerald Everett. So, I mean, I'll throw that in there as well.
Yeah, guys, just want to say real quick, if you're watching, hit that like and subscribe button, guys. That is kind of YouTube's not so much going off views anymore, but more likes, guys. So if you can hit that like button for us, that's the algorithm that seems to work to get your content out there a little more. We would appreciate that. Guys, Kyle, go ahead on Cole Kmet.
I actually agree with Dustin and Sean on this one. I think Sean's right. I think his numbers will either his receiving yards and touchdowns will either go up or stay about the same as last year. I believe his target share will go down from last year. I think last year he had 90 targets. I think this year he'll get about 75 targets. You guys know what 75 targets is? If you divide it by 17 games, it's 4 targets a game. Less than 4.5 targets a game. He's going to get 4 targets a game. Cole Kmet's going to get 4 targets.
But 75 targets. He had 90 targets last year, 73 receptions. So then how many catches?
That's actually really good numbers. 73 catches on 90 targets.
Yeah. So how many receptions?
A good football player.
So he had 73 receptions last year. I think this year will be closer to 60, 65, but much longer receptions than Cole Kmet had last year because Justin Fields was not a good passer. I think he'll get – I think he's capable of getting 60, 65 receptions on 75 targets, 100%. I think he has a more accurate quarterback.
Let me be the Debbie Downer that talks about the elephant.
Tight ends, because tight ends are the easy throw. That's why rookie quarterbacks love tight ends. So I don't know if you guys heard – if you guys get a chance, let's go listen to Tom Brady breaks down what was the easiest things and the toughest thing for him playing in the NFL. It's an absolutely amazing 2 minutes. He basically talks about – everybody always says that – Edelman was the best on the team, or Gronk was the best on the team, or Welker was the best on the team. He said, no, they have the most route options. They're in the middle of the field. They can run left. They can run right. They can run straight. They can curl back. They can do whatever they want. He's like, they have so many routes to run. One of them is always open. The receivers have the sideline to deal with. Those outside receivers have the sideline. They can't go right. If you're on the right sideline, you can't go right because you're going out of bounds. So the completion percentage towards tight ends and dumping off to running backs, obviously screen passes, is much higher than throwing to the outside of the field, outside the numbers. Those are tough passes, and it's going to take Caleb Williams a little while to not only get comfortable throwing those passes in general, even if he can throw them, to get comfortable throwing them, but he's going to make mistakes, guys. When he's throwing those passes like that pass he threw to Rome Odunze in the preseason game, some of those are going to end up being picks, and that's not because Caleb Williams is not a good quarterback. It's because Caleb Williams is a rookie learning a new offense with new players he's never played with before in a much better league than college. He's going to make mistakes. Those safe throws for him are going to be the tight end curl routes, the screen passes, the dump offs. Those are the passes that Caleb Williams are going to complete.
That's why I'm high on Swift. Swift.
Sure. Yeah, the check down.
Swift.
Let me harp on this Kmet thing. So, we had a lot of backup quarterbacks in the league last year, guys. It was anytime a backup quarterback which is often a young quarterback or at least an inexperienced quarterback hasn't played very much football in the NFL most of the time. Anytime they played 8 games or more, they threw to the tight end 80% of the time because, like Kyle said, not only are those high completion throws inside the field, they're safer. Not only you have the sideline to deal with wide receivers, the corners are the guys who get interceptions for the majority in the NFL, right? Those are the guys you don't want to throw the ball to. So I do believe Caleb Williams is going to throw in the center of the field. I, however, believe no matter who's in the slot as receiver is still a better option than Cole Kmet. And like Dustin said, he was the number 2 last year. If your slot receiver is Keenan Allen, Rome Odunze, or DJ Moore, he's a better option than Cole Kmet. Now, I wanted to believe Cole Kmet's numbers were going to go up, and I truthfully pitched that for weeks on CSP, guys. But my biggest concern, I'm going to talk about the elephant in the room.
Really quick,
the thing that's breaking my heart right now is –
real quick, before you move on, you just said that
the anticipation you just gave the audience, Kyle.
Real before you move on to something, and I forget, you just said that the slot receiver is much better than Cole Kmet as an option. But Brennan, Shane Waldron plays a lot of 2 tight end sets and no slot receiver. 2 receivers, 2 tight ends.
Okay, so let's move on to my elephant in the room. Shane Waldron is coaching a tight end whom he's familiar with, and his name is not Cole Kmet, and it has been detrimental to Cole Kmet's percentage of snap shares. That is my biggest concern for Cole Kmet right now. Is Gerald Everett is the number 1 tight end on the Bears for snap shares, and I don't see why that.
Yes, sir.
I don't think why that would change when the season starts. I don't believe it will.
both of you guys. I'm willing to bet $100 each of you guys. not a chance in hell Gerald Everett ends up with more
No,
targets.
so let's say,
I
so let's say
don't.
this.
I don't think so.
I
So let's say this.
strongly disagree.
Gerald
This
Everett has
is-
500 yards or
this is-
more once. Cole Kmet's done it every year he's been in the NFL, except for once.
This is the benefit of being a Bears fan.
Hold on,
We
hold on. Let
watch-
Brandon talk. Let Brandon
This is
talk.
the benefit of being a Bears fan. We watch the preseason, right? So, guys, for those of you who aren't Bears fans, guys, you're just looking at fantasy pre-rankings. Cole Kmet and the position ranking on Yahoo is 14. Gerald Everett's 36. Cole Kmet's 148 overall. Gerald Everett's 292. So, fantasy would project to you that Cole Kmet's going to be the go-to tight end on the Bears. And I still don't like Cole Kmet as a top 15 tight end. Guys, if you're going to draft, don't draft the Bears tight end in your fantasy league to be your number one tight end. That's my advice to you.
I'm staying
But-
away. I'm staying away from.
But I
tight ends on the
believe
I
that
am.
the snap share for Gerald Everett is going to remain consistent because every insider that's written for the Bears has said it appears as if Cole Kmet has found himself in a second string role. And I believe that now with two tight ends on the field, yes, Gerald Everett and Cole Kmet will be on the field sometimes together, but you also just mentioned 11-man personnel. You need these three wide receivers on the field at the same time, don't you? So one of the
Shane
tight ends
Waldron
will
is going
come
to
off.
play what's best for this.
One
You
of
know,
the
Cole,
tight ends will come off. When those three wide receivers are on the field, it appears right now as if Gerald Everett's going to be the tight end that's on the field.
He's not going to play every play. Roman Dunze is not
You
going
also
nowhere.
do know you also do know Shane Waldron used the highest percentage of two tight end sets in the entire
They're
league.
both
I think
going
they're
to be-
And
gonna-
Martellus Bennett was signed for a reason.
Go look at
Martellus
their
Bennett's a blocker.
Mercedes
put-
Lewis, Brandon. Mercedes
Mercedes
Lewis.
Lewis.
Mercedes Lewis. You don't put these two. You don't put Cole Kmet and Gerald Everett on the field more often than you do Mercedes and somebody else. Probably not.
Brandon,
In a pass play.
Gerald Everett has had a very inconsistent career up to this point.
He's
Very
been,
inconsistent.
he's been injured a lot.
He was with-
Okay,
he was
but
with
let's just say
I
this.
do love Gerald Everett.
Let's just say this. Brandon is talking about snap share, the snap percentage in preseason, which he is accurate about. Gerald Everett played more at the tight end position than
That's
Cole
not
Kmet
good
did.
for the preseason,
in
guys.
terms of
That's
snap.
not good
No.
for the preseason.
For sure.
You don't
I
play your
agree.
best players in the
I
preseason,
agree.
guys.
But I would say this. Shane Waldron is not going to just stick to two tight ends because that's what he did in Seattle. He's going to utilize the players on this team, and he's going to play to the strengths of this offense. I 100% believe that. So I think we're going to see a lot more three wide receivers set than we do see two tight end personnel. Based on what we saw last year with Waldron and Seattle. That's what I think.
Okay,
You know,
but
I
that's the
would say I
conversation.
think they're going to still use two tight end personnel because Gerald Everett was signed to be a move tight end.
They did. Did you watch
And-
the preseason?
And
used two-
Cole
Does
Kmet
the
is
preseason
already
matter or does it not? Does the preseason matter or does it not, Kyle?
Well,
I
for
mean,
play calling,
it doesn't
I
matter
think-
with snap
I
count
think
on
getting a new player
Everett and Kmet,
acclimated.
but-
For cadences, yes. Sure. Yeah, Dustin, I think preseason matters even in the terms that you are saying. Gerald Everett played more than Cole Kmet. That's not good. It matters.
That's the
It
point
matters
Brandon's
the wrong
making,
way.
and it's a valid
It matters
point.
the wrong way. Sure. Or you just said, Dustin,
Hey.
why didn't DeAndre Swift play in the preseason? Why isn't he playing in the preseason?
Because they don't want him to get hurt. And they
Why
don't
isn't
want to
Cole
show
Kmet
the
playing?
NFL what
Kmet
they're
isn't
going to do.
playing.
Because Cole Kmet is their number one tight end, and they don't want him to get hurt. You guys, Cole Kmet was signed to a 4-year deal by the Chicago Bears. He is the future of the Bears. He
I
is
don't
the
think it's a
best tight end on the
competition
Hey,
between
hey,
Cole
guys.
Kmet and Gerald Everett.
Look at
fantasy-wise.
Guys,
Cole Kmet,
last year,
obviously the better
guys,
option.
last year,
What was
Hold
Gerald
on,
Everett's contract?
hold on.
What was Gerald Everett's contract? How much does he paid?
Ooh, that I don't know. But we got to talk about this elephant in the
I think it was like
room.
3 years.
Hold on,
18
guys.
2
Last-
years,
hold on,
18
real
million,
quick,
something like
real
that.
quick.
$12 million. It's
Real
2 years,
quick.
$12 million.
There you go.
Kyle,
Yeah, that makes sense.
give
2
me a
years,
second.
12.
Real quick, last year the Bears used a 27% 12-man personnel. The Seahawks used the same. In passing downs, the Seahawks used a 69, that's fifth in the league, 69% 11-man personnel. Chicago used 63. And then in usage rate was 50%. Chicago was 50%. So that states in first and second down, this is on first and second down, that Shane Waldron used 3 wide receivers on the field 69% of the time. Fifth in the league, he used 3 wide receiver sets on first and second down. That will remove a tight end from the field.
Yeah, but
That's
Brandon,
what 11 man is.
Yeah, and the tight end, Brandon, but the tight end that's probably going to stay on the field is probably going to be Cole Kmet once the regular season
100%.
starts. I agree with that.
Unless he's
But if they
hurt.
use 2 tight ends, guys, it might be Gerald Everett and Mercedes Lewis when they run with the 2 tight ends. That's
Yeah.
very popular. Mercedes Lewis is going to be out there to block.
let me tell you guys something about the Chicago Bears that I know for a fact, and obviously a lot of this stuff is speculation or opinion. there's one thing I do know about the Bears for a fact because I've listened to about 13 interviews about it. Ryan Poles, Kevin Warren, Matt Eberflus, every coach they all love Cole Kmet. That is one of their Ryan Poles has done what? 4 extensions since he's been here? 4 guys he's kept. The rest he was like, I don't want any of Ryan Pace's garbage anymore. There's, I think, 4, right?
Yeah.
So it's Jalen Johnson.
Cole Kmet.
It's Cole Kmet. And who are the other 2? We're missing
Tevin
2.
Jenkins didn't get one yet.
But regardless, or maybe it's 2. Regardless, Cole Kmet was not signed for 4-year, whatever, 52.
Well, he just did DJ Moore. He just did the DJ Moore extension.
Yeah, he wasn't. Well, yeah, but he brought him here. He wasn't here
He
for
brought him here.
But
Players that were here originally.
I
Before
think there's little ones. Patrick Scales was extended for a year. I think the kicker was here before.
Well, I hate to put a bow on this so quickly, boys, but we are down to our last couple of minutes here. Do we want to touch on the Chicago Bears defense really fast before we get out of here?
In fantasy,
Fantasy defense. We'll just go this. The Bears defense last year from weeks 10 to 8 held opponents who hold a quarterback's rating to 70.5. They allowed 11 touchdowns while taking 16 balls away from quarterbacks, and the run D held up to 93.9 yards the last 8 weeks of the season. With these numbers and the Tez effect, is this a defense that you guys are thinking about taking in fantasy? I know there's a lot of us, I know Kyle and I do this a lot, and we usually stream week to week, but I know there's a lot of people that don't do that. If you were going to say, hey, I'm taking a defense, would you trust the Bears throughout the season to be your fantasy defense, especially with weeks 1 through 10 against the first and second year quarterbacks?
Perfect. So, Sean, you took the words out. First of all, the competition through the first 10 weeks of the season with the Chicago Bears is not very good. Now, obviously, that changes every year. They say these teams aren't going to be good, and they go on the next season, and they're all good. I think the NFL averages 6 new playoff teams every single year. So you can see the parity. I mean, there's constantly teams coming out of the woodwork and becoming good teams. But the Bears, the reason I have the Bears up there high in fantasy for defenses is their secondary. I think the Bears have the top 5 most dangerous secondaries all in the NFL. If Montez Sweat can stay healthy, their defensive interior can get better, like Javon Dexter takes the next step, and they can find anybody on the other end, whether it be Austin Booker, whether it be the guy that's traded for from Seattle. If they can pressure the quarterback on a consistent basis, the Bears have the most dangerous secondary in football. I think Justin, you and I have talked about this before. I think there's a chance that Stevenson actually ends up being better than Jalen Johnson. I think Stevenson could be.
Tyreek Stevenson is a top 5 cornerback in the league this year.
Yes, I think he's more of a ball.
About to blow up, guys. Yeah.
Tyler Gordon is about to blow up for sure.
That's what he's saying, though. That whole secondary is about to blow up.
I think you hit the nail on the head, Sean, Kyle, when you said in the first 12 weeks this Bears defense is one to own. I'm concerned about the latter season because I think when this Bears team is playing, well, first off, guys, I've said it 100 times on CSP. I'll say it now. They're playing 7 of the 8 quarterbacks drafted in the first round over the last 2 years. So you're playing Anthony Richardson, J.J. McCarthy would have been there. Bo Nix is the only guy they're not. You got some Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud. You're playing a bunch of young quarterbacks, right?
Apparently,
Jaden Daniels, Drake May. But when the Bears face really quality offensive lines like Detroit, you might not want to start them that week. I'll say that. I think they're going to struggle. They're going to struggle to get the pass rush on quality lines, and you might want to plug and play somebody else for those weeks.
Vernon, there's not many fantasy defenses you want to play against Detroit.
To piggyback off of what Sean was saying to start this segment, I'm not touching a defense until my last pick, and whoever's there, I'm good with. I'll pick the best of the bunch, and the Bears might be there. Their defense is ranked.
I agree.
Their defense is ranked 12th in fantasy right now. If you're drafting in fantasy, do not take a defense until the last round, guys.
No, I agree.
Stack up on receivers, stack up on running backs, get your backup tight end even. Do not take a defense.
Yeah, but if the Bears are there.
I'll feel comfortable taking the Bears, but I would take the Texans over them. I would take the Eagles over them. I would obviously take the Steelers over them.
Jets.
The Jets are probably going to be. People are going to take Cleveland and New York in the
going number 1.
The Jets in Cleveland are probably going in the 12th round, and take advantage of that. Get an awesome bench receiver. But I like this. I like this Bears defense. I have questions about the pass rush. I think Gervon Dexter is the key there, but they'll be good to win some matchups for you potentially, depending on how your defenses are scored. I wouldn't feel bad taking them with my last pick.
Well, it's not just the secondary and the linebacking core that are going to make this dangerous very defense. I mean, guys, let's face it. If there's one thing Matt Eberflus for sure is good at, it's coaching a defense. He's still calling the plays. He hired Eric Washington, who's absolutely an amazing coach by all accounts.
Eric Washington effect. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
From what I've seen in the preseason, the Bears defensive line has looked better. I don't know if that's because they're playing lesser competition or if that's because these guys are getting better every week. I don't know. But if right now what the Bears have looked like between the end of last year and the preseason, I don't see why anybody would keep the Bears out of the top 10 defenses in the NFL this year. I mean, right now they are.
Nobody really has them there. Nobody really has them. DVOA don't have them there. Nobody really has them.
Yahoo has them ranked
fantasy. I'm talking about fantasy. I would put them in the top 10 fantasy.
Yahoo has them ranked 6 overall.
I would say when it comes to Eric Washington, his creativity, his unbalanced blitzing, I think there's a lot of things.
Stunts on the defensive line.
Yeah, the back 2 levels. Now your secondary is going to suffer if you're not getting that pass rush. But I do think the Tez effect is going to be something, and I know not everyone on this panel believes in him, but I still believe in Mr. Dexter. So I'm hoping that he proves me right.
Well, guys, they do. This is not fantasy relevant. Just letting the world know out there for those who are on the last page. Zach Pickens is injured, and they traded to acquire Chris Williams from the Browns to fill that role.
Yes,
they are short a nose tackle right now.
Well, they also said this morning on the score when I was listening to the score, the score still does not know. The Bears have still not disclosed what it is.
This is what they do with injuries, man. You never know. With injuries in the Bears, you just don't
Pickens
get the
could be out for the whole season, guys.
Yeah, you don't get.
It sounds like he is.
Know, man.
It sounds like he is.
Are you guys anything else you guys want to talk about here before we?
Yeah, we got it.
Guys, great show. It was a lot of fun. We got to get a little better at not talking over each other so much, but it's good to get the passion and dive into that a little bit.
We'll dial that in next week.
I want to thank John Franco. Joe Dicka says he's late, but here, make sure you go back and watch the show, my man. Trax was in here. Bruce Pham was in here. PT.
Trax.
What was it?
PT 57.
PT 57. Silver Steel. Sean, what up? Thank you so much, guys. Like and subscribe.
Brian A, Bruce, Dano, Michael.
Yeah. Share with your friends. Ask them to like it.
We'd also like
to get us to the moon. Yeah.
One more shout out real quick to our first and only sponsor, River Street Tavern, 102 North River Street, East Dundee. If you guys get the chance, you're in that area, go check it out. Great bar, great vibes.
$2 burgers Wednesday night.
Their bartender kind of sucks, but it's okay. Their food is good.
Yeah.
Don't forget, guys, you can catch these two knuckleheads on the bottom of your screen on Chicago Sports Podcast in about 30 minutes, breaking down their expectations for the Chicago Bears 2024 season.
Breaking down Tyson Bagent.
Don't talk about Tyson Bagent.
I'm not doing that.
Leave that man alone. The Bagency is open.
Let's not.
Yeah.
Hey,
all right, guys. We appreciate y'all watching, man.
Hey, this was fun. Hit that like and subscribe.
Much love to the viewers. Much love to the chat, guys.
Real quick, guys. Same place next week.
Same place next week. We may pop in during the week with a pop-up show. We'll let you know on Facebook.
And we're working on our first guest, possibly. Guest, guys.
So if you guys subscribe, you'll get those notifications when we're gonna do any of those pop-up shows or whatever. Make sure you tune in. We're gonna have a lot more fun conversation down the road. I thought it was a pretty solid first outing for us.
Yes, absolutely. And don't forget, December 16th, we'll be having that announcement for the Bears-Vikings Monday night game. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be sponsored by 4 Stars Chicago Sports and Chicago Bears Charities Bears Care. We'll let you know as we figure this out down the road. Thank you all. Peace and love. Stay safe out there. We'll see you guys next week. Hit that like and subscribe. Thank you.
Bear down.
Bear down.
Bear down, guys.